Hi, all. Welcome to another episode of Saturday Architecture. One of the things we take pride in doing great design and architecture, and with a lot of experience, we start doing better architecture. And just before the call, we were having a discussion, and we kind of hit upon a scenario where I was looking at an anti-pattern of where we over-engineered stuff. And then we said, oh, okay, it's very important. We talk about a lot of do's, but I think in this episode, we would kind of focus on what we should not do when we are doing design and architecture. It might be controversial, it might be counterintuitive, but I guess very important when you look at it at hindsight. So I'd let Raja talk about this first. On He says he has a list of don't do. So let's just listen to a couple of them. Go ahead, Arjun.
Thank you, Kumaran. So I'll start with the top three. All right. So instead of going through the whole list, I have a couple, but let's start with top three. The first one is the first on the top is don't handle all the scenarios. This is a trap, actually, right? So whenever we start designing as an architect, we automatically get into how to handle all the scenarios with single components or trying to get this architecture to address everything. That's a myth. So the first statement I have is don't look at all the scenarios. Just do what is needed. What is that particular thing that we want to do, right? Note down that as a goal and work towards that goal. Don't over-engineer the stuff, right? That's the first thing. The second one is within the design discussion, how one person nominated as a user, right? So as a user, he will highlight, don't do this for me. Don't do this for me, right? So this is the second one. So if, currently we are replacing that with ChatGPT also. So if we have anything, we'll just put it to the ChatGPT and ask it act like this user, and we give the comments, and then it gives back that don't do this. Correct.
Okay,
So
nice.
specifically, don't do this kind of stuff. So we replace that with ChatGPT. The third one is always think about we try to have this, the puzzle of splitting this across. We try to refactor the code even which doesn't exist today, right, in the design stages. So that is the other problem I see, right? Because we talk more about what are the class files, how to put it in the different packages and stuffs like that. But really the functionality is not there yet. So what we do right now, just go, write it, and have the specific boundaries, and then start coding, right? And consider refactoring as one of the activities at the end of the day, right? Not really before this. These are the top three I have for my design team.
Just to understand the last point, what we are doing is an abstract meta refactoring. We are refactoring something which doesn't exist. And we are
It
looking
doesn't
at
exist.
scalability and maintenance when we have no clue what we are trying to do. Excellent points.
These are the three things we have. That's the top three when we have a discussion about the design and the architecture.
Yeah. Deepak?
So actually, I just want to give a sort of a contrary view on not exactly saying don't do's, but how can we frame it as do's instead of calling them as don'ts?
Okay.
Because if you read this is more about communication, right? Because this comes from how you train a dog, right?
Got it.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying coders are dogs, but this is if you say don't jump, the first thing that comes to the dog is to jump and then think about not doing it,
Right.
right? So so that's my sort of take on don'ts. So if you want to do, you want people not to do some things, you want to reframe it as how you make them do something. So that's my opinion on doing the same thing but in the reverse way. Don't call them don'ts. So I'm just contradicting myself. Don't call them don'ts, but that's my sort of take on if you really want to get it done.
So that's actually a very interesting point. So I think as Raja and you were telling, right, the first thing is basically get something, I mean, a very basic thing, right? Just focus on how to get some ugly, bad code consciously for a very particular, clear scenario, which you can test with the customer, right? I think that is what we should focus on. In fact, like design it for a very clear scenario that you know that the customer wants, and think of that. have a mentee in mind. And I think Raja's tip that either use Chat GPT. Honestly, I don't think any developers have the maturity or the knowledge to play the end user. Okay, we are so biased with code that even with all my experience, I am very worried whether I can play the role of the end user. It could be competency with the software technology or my thing, but there are a lot of things that is there. But I think great thing, I think I would actually start using that, use Chat GPT, create a role, and then use that as a end user there for a specific scenario. Check with it that whether the end user does not like that user flow or experience for a very specific case, and go implement it, and then think about re-engineering or scaling or performance later. As I'm telling this, we get worried that will I miss all these points? But I think after so many years of experience, I you got to have that in mind, and you should know that you haven't done it. But I don't think we can capture that hill on day one itself. Thanks, Deepak and Raju, for sharing your thoughts.